Hello, everybody. Back again with another video. Hope you're doing well. Hope your life's going well. Hope this week has gone well for you, and hope that today has gone well for you. Today is Tuesday. We've made it to Tuesday. It is May the 13th, 2025. It is about 8:10 a.m. Central Standard Time, and I hope that y'all are having a wonderful Tuesday. I hope it's been a wonderful week for you all, and I hope it's been a productive and non-stressful week for you all. As for me, I'm doing good myself. No issues on my end. Just a normal, regular week for me. Let's get into what I want to talk about. I want to talk about how American culture breeds divisiveness. This is something that I have picked up on, as I've gotten older, right? How, here in America, this is a very individualistic culture. Like, this is not really a community based culture. It's not like other parts of the world where there's more of a community, right? Here in America, it's very individualistic. It's all about me, myself, and I, you know, and, we can throw in, me, myself, and I, and my family. People don't really care about other people like that. People don't care about, other people's families like that. There's, again, no sense of real community. And, obviously this isn't the case everywhere, but for the most part, I would say for the majority of America, right, there is no real sense of community, right? We don't live in a time where you know your next door neighbor anymore. We don't live in a time where you talk to your next door neighbor anymore, right? Say you live in a apartment community, you don't know anybody. And there's a multitude of reasons why. I think one of the reasons is just due to the fact that people have a general distrust for other people here in America. And on one hand, I understand why. In today's culture, a lot of people are very unhinged. People are willing to fly off the deep end over any little thing. And, you have to ask yourself, why are people like that in America? Well, there's a multitude of reasons for that. Maybe it's the stress of living in America, how American workers are being squeezed for everything they have. These jobs, these careers are draining their energy. They're draining their, mental, basically it can be that. And these jobs aren't paying enough, causing stress. So you already have people that are stressed out. And so it creates a situation where people have a short leash. Or maybe it's because a lot of people grew up, in chaotic environments where there was no structure, and they take those traits and habits into their adult life. And, as adults, they're not structured, they're chaotic people. And, you just never know with some people. Any little thing can set them off, especially here in America, right? And, It's very unfortunate because that's what creates this distrust for people. And all you have to do is watch the news and you'll see all this violence here in America. And a lot of times, when you're watching the news, they'll tell you, well, why did this person do this, or why did this person do that? Why did they commit this violent act? And it'll be over something silly. Like I saw one story where, what happened in that story? It was like this family gathering or something, and two family members got to arguing, and all of a sudden, you know, someone's getting shot. So, just real crazy stuff like that is basically the norm in America. Like, when I saw that story, I wasn't really shocked or surprised. Obviously, it's sad, but it doesn't shock me because, I always have to circle back to the fact that, here in America, people have a very short leash, right? The distrust for your American neighbor is at an all-time high. And there's a lot of great people here in America, right? A lot of wonderful people who wouldn't, harm anyone, people who would give you the shirt off your back, off their back. And, you just don't know them because, Americans, they don't really get to know neighbors like that. And it's an unfortunate situation. This individualistic society. It's all about me, myself, and I, again, in my family, right? And the truth is, too, a lot of people don't care if they have to, step on someone's toes to make money. People don't care if they have to harm somebody else to make money, right? It's a bad situation all around, right? We live in this independent culture, right? And when I say people don't really care if they have to harm someone in order to make money, I mean, just look at some of these more like, some of these inner city communities, right? You have the convenience stores on every corner where you have, these places selling nothing but junk, right? And we know that's harmful for the community, but, at the end of the day, who cares? We turn a blind eye to that due to the fact that, well, as long as I'm making money, I don't care. You look at these fast food restaurants, right, on every corner. Who cares, right? As long as they're making money, it doesn't matter what ingredients are in that food. It doesn't matter if that food has tons of sodium, tons of preservatives, tons of saturated fat in it. It really doesn't matter. Who cares? Right? It's all about that almighty dollar. Right? We worship money in society, and that can be a divisive thing to do. The worship of money. Money is one of the false gods in this society. The whole mentality of wanting to get rich by any means necessary. I ask, why do you want to be rich so bad? Right? There's nothing wrong with saying, hey, I want to have some money to take care of, family and provide a roof over your head and everything. But this whole thing of wanting hundreds of millions of dollars, billions of dollars, we worship these billionaires. Don't let anybody tell you otherwise. We worship these billionaires. Let me tell you, people worship Jeff Bezos, Elon Musk. We worship these people. Not me, but a lot of Americans worship these people. Like whenever you give an example of, oh, who do you want to be like? Who are some of the most influential people in the world? They'll tell you, oh, Jeff Bezos. Oh, I want to be like Jeff Bezos. I want billions of dollars, right? I want to be like Elon Musk. We worship these people, right? I mean, seriously. And to be honest, a lot of these people that are rich, they already got a head start. A lot of them didn't grow up like the average American anyway. Okay. So they come from a whole different, upbringing that most Americans didn't have. Most Americans don't have parents who multi-millions of dollars, right? Most Americans don't have what they call old money like that, right? So while we worship these people and act like these people are gods in this society, they had it totally different than many of us. And there's nothing wrong with admitting that, right? But to worship them is wrong. You shouldn't worship somebody simply because they're rich, right? And we do that in American culture. We worship the rich. We worship the celebrity. Oh, that's another thing. Let me go in on that. We worship the celebrities, the people that are on television. We worship these people. But why do we worship these people? Well, because they're rich and they have some sort of status in society. But why not, have that level of respect for our families, for our parents? Not saying worship them, but why not have such a heightened respect for the people that were there for you? Family, not some person on television. I mean, seriously, was that person that's on television there for you? Have you ever met that person before in person? If you have, it may be for a picture or something like that, but they weren't there for you. You can't call that celebrity up, and talk to them about your problems if something comes up. Who are you going to call when you have a problem or something comes up? You're going to call your family, maybe your parents, maybe your brother, your sister, your cousins. right? Aunts, uncles, that's who you're going to call if, maybe your friend, right? Those are the people that are there for you. Those are the people you should have such a heightened respect for, not somebody on television that's rich, right? These are the true good people in your life, the people that are there for you, right? You see all these people on TV and you hear all these different stories. Oh, this person did this or did that. Who cares, man? Again, you're not going to call that person up when you need them. Okay, you're calling someone, right, that will help you. Even if you have to call a therapist, that therapist is there to help you, right? They're there to, guide you through, anything that you're going through, mentally at least. Again, I got more respect for the people who do things in society that help society versus somebody on TV like an actor or musician or sports player. Let me tell you, that therapist is out here saving lives, right? I mean, seriously, the jobs, right? The jobs that actually do things for society. I mean, let's talk about them, right? Therapist, firefighter, teacher, trades, right? Nurses, doctors, right? These help society. Not an actor. Why do we worship these people? Seriously. But that's a part of American culture. And if you dare to even mention something like this, oh, you're just hating. It's not really hating. It's just kind of pointing out the obvious, right? American culture. We're separated in more ways than one. The divisiveness is real. Seriously. I mean, you look online and you see all this stuff about, you just see all this stuff. Black person, white person. We already separate ourselves by race. Why do we even separate ourselves by race, though? Why is it that we do that? I mean, seriously. Why do we separate ourselves? Why do we call ourselves a color? Right? Is there really a such thing as a black person? Is there really a such thing as a white person? No. There's no such thing. That's a whole nother video, y'all. But for the sake of what I'm saying, we separate ourselves already. Right? We're all human beings at the end of the day. You look in the animal world, members of the same species of animal don't separate themselves by colors, right? The darker birds don't separate themselves from the lighter birds. Why do humans do it? Why do humans even bring that up? And I'm only bringing it up because other people brought it up way before my time. Why do we do this? Honestly, divisiveness, right? The powers that be know that race is one of the easiest things to divide the masses by. Race, politics, gender, some of the easiest things to get people riled up and divided. Race is one of the biggest ones. One of the biggest ones. The media knows it too. Y'all don't realize that the media knows this? That's why they show you that's why when there's like a story where like a like a white person does something to like a black person, or a black person does something to a white person, especially if one of them's like a police officer or whatever, they're gonna blast it all over mainstream media because they know that divisive American culture is going to tune in and make these media companies all kinds of money, crazy amounts of money. That divisiveness, man, these media, you think these media companies care? You think that legacy media cares? Right? No. They care about that almighty dollar. They worship that dollar just like anybody else. They worship that money just like anybody else. So they gonna show you the most shocking stories, and they're gonna stay on top of the most shocking stories. And that just goes for any sort of popular story in general, not just the racial ones. But the racial ones, they'll definitely pick up on, right? I mean, seriously. They know. Oh, they know. Especially if it's like a white person that does something to a black person. That will push the ratings through the roof. I mean, look at the different racial stories that are popular, out here. Just look at the views on these mainstream media YouTube channels. They're in the hundreds of thousands, sometimes millions. They know people tune in because it's drama, it's divisive. That's American culture, divisive. White versus black, black versus white. Oh, and another thing, didn't even think of this. Americans and immigrants, right? There's a lot of Americans that don't want immigrants coming in, because people, some Americans feel like immigrants are going to change the culture of America. And the thing about immigrants that, you have to understand is that, many times when immigrants are coming over, it's simply because they want a better life. Obviously, there are some people that are criminals that come into this country, but let's be honest, the vast majority of people that are coming over just want a better life. The vast majority of people that are coming over are not criminals, right? I know that they like to kind of push this narrative that, the most people that are coming over are criminals or whatever. They try to push this narrative without really just saying it like that outright. But that's what they want to say, even though it's not true. But that's why you'll see, you know, certain politicians say, oh, don't, you know, criminals are coming over. This criminal's coming over. That criminal's coming over from this country, that country. But we know that's not the vast majority of people, right? Do I believe that they should have more control over the border and who comes over? Yes. But this narrative that, they're just trying to come over and destroy the country now, that's just, that just plays right into the whole American divisive culture, this individualistic culture, right? You don't want non-Americans over here. You just want Americans. You want one type of person in this country, right? Again, that plays right into it if you think about it. The divisiveness. You know, I think about, politics, right? Red versus blue, Democrat versus Republican, and just the idolatry behind politics and how mean people can get over politics. Again, divisive, right? You can't make a criticism about a politician without people flying off the deep end. You really can't. You can't say anything about the opposite party without people flying off the deep end. Even if it's respectful. Respectful discourse in politics is long gone. Politics is basically a theater nowadays. It's basically a theater play. It's basically reality TV, right? And that's why a long time ago, I gave up on the idea that a politician is going to make things better for Americans. The truth is, you got to make things better for yourself, right? Because no matter who's in there, they're going to do what they want to do. I mean, seriously. I have to be careful with this too because, people, I don't know, y'all. Again, the reason I have to be careful is because we live in such a divisive culture. Again, American culture. That's just the culture. I mean, there's things we can do to change this American culture for the better, but this divisive culture is toxic. It's sad. And I think that, for a lot of people, they get tired of it. And this is why, for many people, the solution is moving overseas or just getting away from, people in general. And I understand, there's a lot of countries around the world that have a way better sense of community than the United States. It's not as much of an individualistic culture in other countries as it is here in the United States. Now, don't get me wrong, the United States does provide opportunities that other countries may not have, but, what comes with that is the individualistic culture, the divisive culture, right? And I was looking at, this thing here. I just typed in like modern American culture, and their AI thing popped up. It says like some of the negative aspects of American culture are individualism and separation. It says American culture often emphasizes individual achievement and independence, which can sometimes lead to a sense of detachment from others and the natural world. It says consumerism and materialism. The pursuit of material possessions and a culture of constant consumption can create a cycle of debt and dissatisfaction, which is true. I mean, honestly, look at the car commercials. Hierarchical and binary thinking. Some argue that American culture tends to be hierarchical and binary, leading to a rigid thinking and authoritarian tendencies. Yes, it says toxic masculinity and misogyny, traditional gender roles, and the idealization of masculinity can perpetuate harmful behaviors and attitudes. Yes, that's definitely true. And I know that's a very controversial one. That toxic masculinity, right? That's a very, very controversial one. And you have to remember too, toxic masculinity, that is a buzzword, right? People are going to hear that. It's one of those phrases that people are going to hear and then they're going to tune out everything else that you have to say, because in their brains, toxic masculinity is associated with certain groups and certain political ideologies. So again, like I talked about before, when people hear a certain word or phrase, they're automatically going to associate the person talking and saying that with that certain group or political ideology. And in their brain, they're basically filling in, oh, this person is going to say this and that, and they're not even going to listen to anything else that you have to say. They've already tuned you out, which is a very bad trait to have. You always want to listen to someone's full statement, full argument before actually responding. You don't want to just jump to conclusions, right? Yeah, so toxic masculinity, that's a real problem. I would argue that we don't really have a true concrete definition of what masculinity really is in America anyway. That's a whole nother video I can make. Short-term thinking, a focus on immediate gratification and profits, can overshadow long-term sustainability and environmental concerns. Idealization of greed, the relentless pursuit of wealth and material success, can lead to ethical compromises and exploitations. Yes, the big corporations. Who cares, right? Who cares if the big corporations harm the environment? As long as they're making money, no one cares that they are polluting the environment, polluting the water, right? Sad. Social isolation, the emphasis on individual achievement and fast pace of modern life can contribute to feelings of isolation and loneliness. Yes, that's true too. Americans are very lonely, lonelier than ever before, right? And that's due in part to everything being about the individual. No sense of community. That's gone, y'all. I think in the past we had we had more of a sense of community, but and another thing that I feel like contributed to that is all this technology, right? Smartphones. We communicate through texting now. We don't even talk anymore. People don't want to pick up the phone and talk anymore, right? That can contribute to isolation. That can contribute to just being focused on the individual, right? That loss of community. And then you throw in the social medias like TikTok, Instagram, what's the other one? X, all these social medias, you throw that in. That's how people communicate nowadays. You don't communicate face to face, talking or anything. People communicate on these smartphones, right? That's the primary way that a lot of people communicate. Which is why you have a lot of people that they act like they don't want to talk, or so it's a multitude of things, y'all. And yeah, it just contributes to this divisive and individualistic American culture. But anyway, I'll bring this video to a close. I hope that you enjoyed this video, and I hope that you enjoy your Tuesday. I hope this video inspires a thought as well. Maybe you realize some of these things in your life, and you try to counter them. Just maybe. I don't know. But anyway, till next time.